I heard Mimi and Jeff play as a duo, and their instruments were so different, and I just saw my instrument, the banjo, as the bridge, like in between. Somehow I heard myself playing with them, and wanted to give that a try to see if I could help with balancing the sound and having a different texture. And the banjo is really like a drum. It's like a percussion instrument, and I felt like I could also play that role where I could be playing percussion, and it's just helped me open up the banjo and take it out of context and really know the banjo for the first time when you get it away from the usual trappings and cultural references that it has. And it's more open, kind of pure straight, and you have to make it fit with the Chinese music, and it gives you a whole new instrument.
Did you find yourselves doing traditional music that were traditional Chinese music and adding the Appalachian to it, or is it more traditional Appalachian music and adding a Chinese element to it?
We definitely started with the Chinese music and found pretty quickly that the open tunings that we need to use on the banjo and the dulcimer fit very easily with the Chinese tunings. And it was pretty easy to just play our instruments how we normally would, but slightly different. It wasn't exactly the same, but close enough that we could play the Chinese, and then we just started like, well, let's try some American tunes, let's try some Irish, Celtic tunes, and then, oh, let's do music that we've written in our own compositions. So some of my songs, we do a lot of Jeff's compositions, which I've heard in a jazz context with him playing vibes on the same songs, and we actually started, it made us experiment with everything. You know, we now a tune that he had done before, we were doing it with the dulcimer, and it made those tunes have a whole new life. And I think we found a good combination of instruments for some of Jeff's compositions.
You know, when we first got together, and when Mimi and I first got together, we were basing things in more traditional music. Mimi would play a piece of Chinese music, and I'd go, you know what? That tune reminds me of this old American tune. Listen to this. And then we would put them together, and we would create a third thing out of elements from the two of them. So it kind of started with that, and then when Sue started working with us, it opened up the possibilities of rhythmically where we can go, and just in terms of creating a whole different kind of framework for things, and just the kind of things that I'm inspired to write just seem to work really well with this combination of instruments. And it's more than just the instruments, it's the people, it's the players. You know, it didn't really matter what the instruments were, it was the people. When I first heard Mimi play, all I could think of was the possibilities of what it could sound like if we got together and played, if she was an improviser. Because very often when you deal with people who deal fairly exclusively with traditional music, they approach things a certain way and they stay within that tradition, and the idea of collaborating to take that tradition somewhere else, or to allow the influences of that tradition to come together with something else, doesn't always happen. So you never know until you actually sit down with somebody, what's that going to be like? And when we first played together, it was like, you know, we all come from that place of being fearless in terms of how our relationship to improvising and our relationship to wanting to collaborate and take things to another step, move things forward. It's not about working deep within the tradition, but it's about being influenced by the tradition. It's our makeup. It's the foundation of where a lot of this is coming from. But then we have moved it to where we want it to take it. It's about our relationship to it and our point of view with it, and so that's where the compositional thing came in, where it's like the inspiration of working with Mimi and Sue. It just starts to come out, and so much of it is really rooted in this place of improvisation and letting things develop. In terms of composition, we might come in with a nugget of something, and then we'll start to develop it. It's very much like the way a jazz ensemble will work. The specifics of the language are a little different, but the concept, the process, it's really the same thing. You're working with the foundation of something, you have an idea you want to pursue, and it's about, let's see where we can take this. And
that actually, and you sort of started answering what I was going to have as my final question, and I figured I'd go ahead and ask you to answer it since you're here. And my question was, where does AppalAsia go from here? And you started to say that it's about the joy of experimentation, the joy of discovering. What else would you like to add as far as?
Well,
now, am I correct in the way did I infer correctly from what you were saying, that it's the joy of the collaboration that drives it?
Well, absolutely, and because it's not about me and my compositions. Sue brings in compositions, Mimi brings in pieces all the time, and it's how we relate to each other's ideas or premises that each of us bring in.
Well, let me ask you to just speculate as to where you might go with this in a year or two. Do you see a direction? Is there a direction you're heading that?
I think we're making it more and more personal. I think where we started off drawing a lot of the inspiration on certain traditions, those traditions will always be there. It's the foundation. But the more we play together and the stronger that relationship and that bond, that musical bond is, the more it's become, that singular voice of the ensemble is really starting to come out. And we're getting very comfortable in that process of, okay, I brought something in, where can we go with it? And we all kind of feel what our roles need to be with it. Not that we're locked into any kind of role, but any ensemble that works together, the beauty of an ensemble that has played together for a while is that unspoken relationship of how the players work together. And that's what's evolving stronger and stronger as we keep doing this, as we keep playing, as we keep relying on our own resources. And that's what the tradition is. It's part of that deep well of resource. And we all have very different backgrounds, so we all bring a pretty deep well of resources to this, but it's about how do you draw on your thing, but we come together as AppalAsia.